how many are required for the restaurant?
Actually, only 2. Yeah, according to the code. And
Sorry, but
yes,
I work in the building next to it, and there's always more than 2 cars in front
for
of it.
sure.
So
Yeah, I'm just talking about.
the little driveway there is really a very tiny one lane. There's no.
Yes, so that we'll talk about the driveway. And so just to close the loop on the parking, really we're just talking about what the zoning requirements are, and certainly we acknowledge that the actual parking occupancy could be different from that. However, and is it okay if I talk about appointment only?
Sure.
Am I gonna be stealing
No,
that?
go ahead.
So one of the key elements of managing the parking demand at a dispensary is the frequency with which people arrive to the facility. By instituting an appointment-only policy, you have full control over that. Yes, go ahead.
I had read some literature or received a flyer that said this would not be an appointment-driven facility.
Yeah,
We all
we
We all
were made
got the
aware
same
that
flyer.
that letter being circulated, which is pretty unfortunate.
Directly from what you said at the Eastern Highlands Council meeting.
Yeah, so the new, I don't know what letter you're referring to, but I think Newton is gonna require that everyone's appointment only, at least for the beginning. And so
So
that's,
that doesn't make any sense, because
Yeah.
at the beginning, can you guarantee that it's not going to be a massive mess like the one on Route 9 in Brooklyn?
yeah.
Where there are lines that are
Yeah.
unbelievable
Yeah.
on the
Absolutely.
street.
And by
On
the
the
way, Brookline is using our appointment-only facility as a standard for what they are proposing to put in the Pier 1 location. There was something that I got on the internet, so appointment only, really, forever. I live up the street.
Why wouldn't you all put appointment only in your application process as ahead of when it goes in front of the city council and all those things?
We'll have to, in order to, so we have to apply for a special permit. In order to do that, we have to submit with the zoning board of appeal. I haven't even submitted yet our plans with the zoning board of appeal. The way Newton's doing it, and probably most towns, is they're starting with a host community agreement. That doesn't guarantee you through the process. I mean, there's no rubber stamps here. So we have to submit everything and anything. We've already committed to Newton that we're gonna do appointment only. I mean, for the foreseeable future,
Like in writing?
if you wanna say forever, I mean, I don't think we even know what this is gonna look like in forever. But, for the foreseeable future, we are prepared to put that in writing. We will put it in writing. In fact, I think we probably have put it in writing. Certainly for the filing with the, ZBA, we will. The, body that adjudicates that, as you know, is the city council. So, and you have a member here in the
What
meeting.
does by appointment mean? How often?
So it means that, so like, let's say it's a weekend like this, and it's tomorrow, and it's a long weekend, with Columbus Day on the other side, and people are getting out of town, and it's Friday at 5 o'clock, it's just bananas. People just got paid, everyone wants to go before they stop on their way out to get marijuana or cannabis before they leave. There's a lot of demand on that. We notify everyone that there is no access. In fact, this is always appointment only, right? So there is no notification. They have to actually, at this point, any customer of ours, we have to know that they have to sign up. And they're gonna know that it's absolutely busy. So if they were to show up, they would not be able to get access to the facility. They would be disappointed. It would be a wasted drive. And most people are very risk adverse on those types of things. Most of our customers would have, there's an initial thing, and this is, by the way, this is not,
What I meant was how often.
this is exactly why I wanted to get through this presentation, so that I could
Open up a can
yeah,
of worms.
really. So I'm gonna take it back, and then I'm gonna come right back to you. So no more questions. No
Not a question. I just want to. I'm live streaming for the benefit of the people who can't be here.
Oh,
So.
thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so and I'm gonna come back on these things because they're all relevant. Somehow they're gonna tie together.
You're gonna let me keep going?
Matt,
Thank you. So, I apologize for sidetracking us there. The appointment only concept is really important from management of traffic demand. But I do just want to provide a couple other details about the site plan. So the width of the drive aisle today is about 16 feet. It varies a little bit. You may be able to kind of fuzzy, but you can kind of see that the grass line meanders a little bit. What we're going to be proposing is to push the blacktop all the way out to the property line, and that's going to give us a minimum of 18 feet for a drive aisle. Now that is actually still less than what would be optimal there. You'd really want 20 feet, but ultimately that's the way that this site is configured, right? The parking is in the rear. The drive aisle can only go out to the property line in the building. And 18 feet will provide enough room for two vehicles to comfortably pass each other. There are plenty of streets in Newton, public streets, that are only 18 feet wide. So, you know, it's certainly not, you know, a sea of pavement out there, but there is plenty of room. We are also proposing, and this I think is going to be a market improvement over the existing conditions on the site, that the western driveway on the bottom of the screen up there is going to be an entrance only, so people will drive in that way, proceed to the rear if that's where they're going to park, come on back out, and as they come back out, they'll see signage that directs them to the right, out in front of the building to exit in that eastern driveway. We're also, so that's going to simplify the traffic flow a little bit, and
Keep that? I don't, you can only go in the bottom and you go out the top.
that's right.
And where's their car?
Just like the arrows. So,
Can you use the,
yep. So people coming in off of Beacon will be able to turn into the western driveway, proceed out back behind the building, park, come back out, and when they reach this point, there will be signage that they'll probably see on their way into that will notify them that they need to exit only through this eastern driveway, okay, on the top of the screen. Both
on Beacon.
Both on Beacon, yes. Today, this eastern driveway, the one on the top of the screen, is a combined driveway with the adjacent property. So you have one driveway that's kind of split after you get across the sidewalk, but the whole thing is one giant curb cut. This will separate the two into two distinct driveways, and hopefully actually be an improvement to the whole area. The other thing that I want to point out, and I think that'll be it for the site plan until you have more questions, in order to safely get people who arrive to the site via foot, pedestrians, to the main entrance, we're proposing a walkway on the top side on your screen of the building. So this white strip up here is going to be a walkway that comes around in between this building and the adjacent building, and gives people access to the rear. I think that's actually probably the part of this space that I'm the most excited about. I think it gives us a really great opportunity to light that in an interesting way, provide artwork on the side of the building, and I think that will ultimately be, for people who arrive on foot, an exciting part of the trip to this building. I think that is probably all.
All right. Thank you, Matt. So this is the actual layout, and subject to some little tweaks and changes. I guess the high point I want to just get to your attention is that the left side is that rear parking lot area that I mentioned, and then the right side is Beacon Street. So deliveries will enter through the right side in a secure delivery. The only person who will ever enter through that building to that, the front of the building, but the Beacon Street side, which is our rear essentially, would be our secure delivery. And you can see it's about a third of the way in is the rear kind of back of house section of the dispensary. And then on the front 2/3, that's the sales floor area. So all the secure delivery, back office area, employee areas, all of that is in that back third, and that will be coordinated through our security person, who I'll bring up in a second here, and his team with Kroll. But the first 2/3 of that store, that is the store, that's the sales floor area. And so you'll enter through through the rear of the building, and right there you encounter a desk, and you have to verify that you are 21. You have to verify that your ID is valid, is real, and you also have to verify that for whatever reason you haven't been barred from coming into our facility. Dan will talk a little bit more about that, but for any bad operators, anyone who has not lived up to their agreement of being a customer of our company, we don't have to serve them. We aren't required to serve them. They can be prevented. I mean, we're not talking about probably 99.9% of the people will be fine, but there will be 1 or 2 people that we don't want to invite back, and that desk right there is where we try to understand who's trying to come in. And then they come in, they fulfill their purchase, they select their purchase, they fulfill their purchase, and they kind of clockwise their way through the facility, and come out through the same way they entered, and they leave. And the average transaction, Tahira, is probably 10, 15 minutes tops. No. And a lot of us, we equate it to being in a liquor store. I went to a liquor store last night. I didn't want to spend time in there. I wanted to get my bottle of wine, and I wanted to leave so I could go home and drink it over dinner. I was in the store for about 5 minutes. It's a similar type of thing. Some people have more questions, especially newer customers. We're there. We don't want to rush them out the door. We have really good people who can help them. But for the most part, the time is about 10
It's average
10
and talk,
minutes.
because average and talk cannot be the same. So
Sorry, what was that?
it's 15 minutes average or talk? Your
Talk.
calculation.
We said,
You said average, he said talk.
what do you think, Tara? Do you think we're talking about like the average is 10 or 15? Or?
So-
If we're talking what's the maximum,
So what's appointment only, is it 15 minutes or is it every 5 minutes?
it's not every 5 minutes. It'll be likely every 15, and then also there are multiple stations, and so you would have 2 customers in there at a time, potentially up to 3 customers at a time, so it's not just one individual going every 15 minutes. And there's buffer time that we'll also include in there.
And if someone wants to stay longer, we're not going to kick them out. I just said that. We want to be able to answer questions of people, especially new people who are coming in who are saying, what is this? Questions about, there's vape questions. There's all sorts of things happening right now in the industry, and there will be. And so people will, people want to know, like, what's going on. So we're not doing the Q&A, we're going to hold off. So our operations hours are proposed from 9 to 9, 7 days a week. We are going to deliver on a staggered basis. So one of the benefits here is that we can coordinate exactly when our deliveries arrive. Our deliveries are very specific, and we're able to really.
Can you read it? We can't see it.
Yeah, this just says that hours of operations is
Is it
9 to 9.
9, so 12 hours?
Yep.
7 days a week?
7
days
That's
a
right.
week?
Yeah, and please, if people have comments or suggestions, or if that concerns close by abutters, that for some reason, we'd like to hear that type of feedback. The product delivery is 2 to 3 times per week, using randomized routes and delivery times. Payment methods are square feet tops, 2,300 square feet even. The amount of cash on hand here, this is not like a bank. We're talking about 5 figures. We're not talking about huge numbers. So if people think that there's, some millions, it's just not like that. There's a couple of pickups during the week that are controlled by us, by our security team. We're talking about 25 employees total, but the shifts are going to be closer to 12, and 12 is going to be the all-time high number. It's probably going to be a little less than 12 per shift of our employees. So I'm going to just kind of skip over here to this customer pledge. As I mentioned earlier,
So the question
but
for your parking,
I'll come right back to you. We're just trying to get through this. So one of the things I was mentioning, that we're going to ask all the customers to sign a pledge, and that says they agree to certain terms: being good neighbors, not smoking outside, not smoking on a neighbor's porch, not walking around and smoking, all the things that we would have a concern about if they were our customers. Certainly not diverting which is the #1 thing that we're concerned about, diverting product into the hands of a child. That is absolutely grounds for not only us stopping that person from coming into our store, but reporting that immediately to the Newton Police Department through our security team.
So why
When
didn't
we
you
get
choose
there-
a location that's in
Sorry.
in walking distance from a school?
Sir, let me finish, please. So one of the things that we have with our customer pledge is we're collecting their information. We're collecting their SMS, their mobile number. So one of the questions about being able to access if we're closing early, if we're not open, we have the ability to get information out, push information out to our customers. If there's an extreme delay with the scheduling of an appointment, if it's like more than 2 hours, we can put that information out there to the extent people subscribe to that information. And many of our customers will be repeat customers, and many of our customers will want to know about that information. I'd like to bring up Dan Linsky, who heads up our security team, and I'll come back after that.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Dan Linsky. I'm the managing director at Kroll, and I'm the security consultant for the project. I was previously a police officer in Boston for 28 years. I wound up with 5 years being the chief of police in Boston. My team will develop the security program, access control, cameras, the ability to secure the facility. What we bring to the table that I don't think other security companies can do is the community and the quality of life issues that go on around the facility. So all of our clients that are in the cannabis space have to agree to a good neighbor pledge that Mike can put up on the thing. When you first come in, you can't enter the facility unless you show an ID that shows you're 21. Once we see that ID, we let you in the facility, you go into our security desk, we scan that ID through an electronic system, we verify you're 21. We also verify that we haven't had challenges with you in the past. If it's your first visit to us, we give you the good neighbor agreement, we tell you what the laws are, we do education with people. Some people think cannabis is legal and I can drive around with 4 pounds of cannabis in my car. That's not true. That can get them arrested. You have to secure cannabis when it's in your car. There's secure ways to store it at home. We won't want people bringing it home and exposing children to it, just like we don't want people bringing home their OxyContin and exposing children to it. So we talk to them about how they can securely store their product at home. There's no public consumption allowed. We talk about all the rules. We inform people who are here on visas and green cards who have citizen issues that it's still a violation of federal law. And in fact, just because it's legal in Massachusetts, someone who is here on a green card or other citizen visa violates the federal law and could have their immigration status changed because they're caught with this product. So we make sure people know exactly what they're dealing with. A lot of education on the edible space where people who might be using this for the first time. We don't want people taking this and feeling like there's no effect after an hour, and then let me take 2 more because I want to get that effect, and lo and behold, it took 2 hours for the onset of the medication. If something occurs outside in the neighborhood, someone goes down to the ball field, someone goes down to the community center and uses our product in public, the police let us know about it. That person's information, we will get their picture, we will send it to the police, we'll identify who they are, and we will put them in our system and they are no longer allowed into our location. If you're a neighbor and you take a picture with your iPhone and say, we just saw this guy coming down the street from the facility, he was smoking cannabis, and we identify him as one of our clients, that's it. We don't need a police report. All we need is somebody in the neighborhood saying someone isn't a good neighbor that's doing the wrong thing, and they will be banned for our facility. If our product shows up someplace, all of our systems have RFID coding on it where we can identify the packaging. If our packaging shows up in a senior in high school's backpack and the school calls us and says this is the package we have here, we'll be able to identify that Dan Linsky bought that package at 2 p.m. on this date. We're going to give Newton PD a copy of the picture, a copy of the manifest, a copy of the RFID, and give them all the information, and that person will be banned from the program. My team secures facilities for big pharma companies in Colombia, in Mexico. We have built and secured facilities for our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. The physical security of the space I'm not worried about. We do that well. I want to make sure that if we're coming into your neighborhood, we want to make sure that we're the best possible neighbor, and any concerns and issues that you have, we're getting. So that's making sure I'm coordinating with your school police officers, your police department, the community groups, and anyone else that's out there. We also have a robust compliance program. It's one thing to have cameras and a policy that all the owners say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we hold ourselves strictly accountable to it. But if the 22-year-old employee doesn't have the same culture and the same desire to do that, and they don't want to follow the rules, they can cause our clients to lose their license. And It's not you get a Monday night suspension because you served a 19-year-old kid alcohol in your bar room underage, and they close you down on Monday in August, and you lose 1 day of Monday night work. In this space, if you get violated, they take your licenses away. So looping is a huge challenge. Our system will allow us to determine whether someone is looping. Looping means that you can only buy 1 ounce at a time, but if you don't have a system in place, you can come back in 2 hours later, you change your hat, you walk back in, you buy another ounce, and that's somebody who's probably going to divert, somebody who's buying multiple ounces. Our system will not allow you to loop on our program, and we have secret shoppers who go in and try and loop to make sure that our team is making quick efficiency of our system, that no one is cheating the system. A company in Colorado had people going in and buying multiple ounces, and they lost 15 licenses, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, which is gone. See you later, because you didn't have a compliance program in place. So my team will also do the compliance program going forward. We'll have an 800 number. It might not be an 800 number. We'll have a number you can contact constantly if there's an issue or concern that gets somebody on our team that can talk to you about any issues that our facility is causing in your neighborhood. I'm going to shut down now and be open for questions afterwards for any security-related issues.
Thanks, Dan. We're almost done. I think it's very important that we just point out that preventing nuisances, so preventing automobile nuisances, preventing trash, preventing the things that neighbors don't want to see, frankly, noise, anything that would be associated with that, is something that we absolutely have to manage. Statutorily, we have to manage this. If we fail on this regard, we fail, and we could get shut down, not by the city of Newton, maybe by the city of Newton, but also by the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And they have some very, very, very difficult compliance procedures. Diversion is probably even more important than preventing nuisances, in that to get any of this product into the hands of children is something that the entire industry, and especially our entire team, wants to make sure never happens. Dan mentioned a few ways of how we're going to do that. We're going to take our compliance, our security, our procedures extremely serious, and not let anyone slip through the holes. And if they do, we could get in big trouble, including shut down. So we have to do everything we can to prevent diversion to young people. We also recognize we're neighbors, and we want to be good corporate citizens. We want to be contributing to this community. So there's a number of ways we do that. Obviously, there's the host community agreement requires a 3% what's the term?
Tax.
Not a tax. It's a impact fee. I'm sorry, a 3% impact fee that goes directly back to Newton based on our gross sales. There's also a 3% tax that goes directly to Newton. So that's 6% that comes to Newton, and then there's a total of 20, about 25% in total taxes between local and state that this throws off. So if we did 10 million, let's say, which I think would be higher than we were ever expecting, especially with the size of the store, but it's easy numbers, then the Commonwealth and Newton gets $2.5 million for that year. And so this starts to replicate out across the entire industry a lot of
That's
number.
not right at 3%. That math is wrong.
So it's about 25% total taxes.
Oh, 25. I
Yeah,
think it's at 3%.
all in. So, but it's 6% in Newton. So you can do the math there, but that would be
Half of that though
600,000.
goes directly to,
600,000.
half of,
60,000.
3% goes directly to the community to mitigate, it's not for the city to
3% goes directly to the city of Newton,
Right,
and
but
then
the other
another
3%
goes.
goes to mitigate whatever.
Well, that's up to
effects
Newton.
are gonna be
However
from
Newton
you.
spends it, but
No, that's how.
Newton-
No, that's the law.
Newton's-
3% impact fee is only for impacts that come with marijuana stores, for extra police details and things like
yeah,
that.
but we are turning over 6% to the city of Newton, and it's up to Newton how they spend that.
Yeah, but your point is taken.
Yeah. And so the other thing we want to do for our commitment to the community is that we want to have a great wage. We want to have the lowest possible wage would be $15. It'll probably be a lot higher than that. A lot of these jobs are careers. There's some six-figure jobs within the company. There's the growing facility, which this is not, but there's opportunities to get into other areas, production. It's a new industry. It's a brand new industry, and there's an opportunity to grow into a very well-paying job. And we want to do things outside of the 3% and the 3%. We want to do direct charitable contributions within this community. We want to identify those charities, and we want to contribute to them. And there's, other things we want to do as being a good corporate citizen. We want to hire locally, and we do have a commitment to hire a diverse workforce. There's been a lot of people who've been imprisoned as a result of the cannabis industry, and now you have people who are making a lot of money on the cannabis industry. And it's important to us that we're providing opportunities for all people, and in particular, people who've been targeted historically against the so-called war on drugs. I reached the end. Okay, so now this is your turn. We're all going to come up here, and we're all going to be available to you for, yes, ma'am.
So when you're talking about your parking, and then you're talking about your facility, on average, you have 12 employees. So how can 8 plus 4 is sufficient for your employee plus the customer? It doesn't.
Yeah, we talked about what the zoning requirements are, but what I would say, so those are what they are. That is what the city has decided. If you have for every 3 employees, you need 1 parking space. That is what the city has decided for retail. What I will say is that one of the great things that this group is going to do is really incentivize not only customers but also employees, especially employees, to take other methods of transportation to work. So whether that's the number 59 bus that runs up Walnut Street, Newton has a great Lime Bike program that the team is committed to providing access to for employees. There'll be bike racks on site. There's a lot of different ways for people to get to the site other than driving. Does that?
So ma'am, we just answer your question and then everyone can raise their hand, otherwise we're just gonna be yelling over each other.
Yeah, so I think that's what I would say to address that part.
Parking exclusive to those spots?
Sir, so we're gonna just go by hand, so this woman had her hands up, yes, ma'am, was
It's
it?
an adjunct to her
Question.
question.
No,
It's
in
an
talking
adjunct to her
about
question.
parking,
And you can raise your hand when you're ready.
there is overflow possibility, a big possibility overflow into other business in the complex. As of now, we know that complex does not have enough parking just for go to Dunkin' Donuts, because we go there often. And then we also witness every summer when we have the farmer's market.
Yeah.
That Beacon Street is a mess. The traffic is a huge mess. This is a residential, very dense residential.
So let me just hit a couple other points. So Matt mentioned, but I want to bring it home. The site is 2,290 square feet. So Newton has a law, because how do you determine how many parking spaces are enough? It's called zoning. The law that they have, the zoning law, says 300 square feet equals 1 parking space. So that would be 7.6 parking spaces. And you divide 2290, 300 into 2290, you get 7.6. And then there's 12 employees. The law says that you do 3 parking spaces for each employee. Even though we are going to incent our employees to not drive, we do not want our employees parking in these parking spaces because we want our customers to park there. But even so, it doesn't matter. The zoning, hold on a second. The zoning requires that there are 1 space per 1 space per 3 employees. So that's 4. So 7.6 plus 4 is 11.6. You round up, there's 12. So 12 parking spaces is what's required of this facility for parking. We have 18 parking spaces. Now, I'm not going to say that those 18 parking spaces are, that the 12, we're never going to need more than 18, or that 12 would have been enough if we even had 12. All I'm saying is that we are exceeding the zoning requirement, unlike almost any other operator that I can think of, including Brookline, that you mentioned, or someone mentioned, and including some of the other people currently in operation in Newton, and certainly better than a lot of our other competitors who are looking in that area. So to come up with 18 parking spaces, we think that's pretty good. We only have...
Ma'am, so, go ahead, ma'am, you were next.
Different type of business than what those strip malls would say.
Go ahead, ma'am, you were second.
I have two questions.
And then, ma'am, and then you, sir.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a second.
One is about parking and one is about vaping. Parking question is, and I could be wrong, but I remember with Garden Remedies and another, I think Ascend, I thought employees are not allowed to park on site. I am almost positive that's
there is no regulation that says employees are not allowed to park there per Newton's bylaws. We are gonna have our own internal policy that our employees are not gonna park on our site.
Where are
Where are they gonna park? Yeah.
We live in the neighborhood, where are they gonna park?
There's any number of things that we can do for employees. We can incent them through a bike program, we can incent them through MBTA.
In January, it's
We could pay for Uber deliveries for our, there's a lot of things that we can do. Sure, it's traffic. I mean, but so let's talk about traffic for a second. Someone mentioned the Dunkin' Donuts. The average drive-through, or even just the average coffee store.
It's not a drive-through.
All right, so you're seeing, have I ever been to a Dunkin' Donuts?
No, the one
I regularly stop at many of these Dunkin' Donuts.
the one
So I would submit, and we can probably test this if you want, that they are gonna have more customers than we're gonna have. The total number of customers that we're looking at is 300. You're an engineer, you went to college. Explain the difference between a coffee shop.
Certainly, so one of the things that the city's happy about our application is that we are small, right? The maximum is 5,000 square feet. We're just over half that, which is great. And the way that you estimate how many trips a facility like this is going to generate is based on its size, right? That makes sense. So other facilities that are 5,000 square feet are going to generate twice as much traffic as ours will. And you know, when you get into comparing that to like a Dunkin' Donuts, it pales in comparison. I don't know what the square footage of that Dunkin' Donuts is, so I couldn't do that off the top of my head. But the number of trips that according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers guidelines, the number of trips that this facility is projected to generate is 24 in the morning and 50 in the evening, and that's for the peak hour. Okay, so one of those, before noon.
Answering her question, sir, please don't cut him off, please don't cut her off.
Just related
Thanks,
to it
Dan.
because he's
So in the morning peak hour, so in the peak hour of the generator before noon, we would expect 24 trips, which is about, so that equates to 12 people coming in and out, right? Each one of those trips is half of one entering, one exiting. In the afternoon peak hour, we would expect 50. So that's 25 people coming to the dispensary.
What are the times?
So
Thereabout.
sir, ma'am, you
The-
want to finish your question?
The parking thing that I was starting to ask you about the employees, I believe that the rationale, or I thought it was the rule, was that if you don't have employees parking there, then you won't have those spaces taken up.
Right,
So
it makes
you're sure
tons
that's
of
not-
sense.
That's not a rule?
It's not a rule.
I'll double
It's not a
check.
Newton rule.
The second question
But
I
it's a
have,
good idea.
going back to vaping, is, as you know, obviously the governor's prohibited it for the next 4 months. At the same time, Newton just held a meeting that they are going to institute new rule, that they are making an ordinance that would not allow any vaping sales anywhere in any store except for the 2 vaping only stores that are already here. This is an ordinance that is they held a general meeting and they hope to get this on the books regardless of what happens with the state. I mean, the state, you know, if Governor Baker continues this, then obviously that trumps anything that Newton does. But if those 4 months end with nothing more, then Newton wants the ordinance to go into effect.
Yeah.
So how would that affect, I mean, is vaping like supposed to be a big part of your business? Because that would just not be allowed to
If that was to happen.
Tab reporter Julie Cohen.
I mean, obviously you have a business plan.
Sure, yeah, and there's an assortment of products. I mean, there are flower products, which is whole flower cannabis. There are other derivatives of oil that are infused with flower, which are drops. There are other forms of products. So vaping is just one category. There is flower, there are other forms of oil, there are edibles, there are a variety of products that are still yet to be developed. So vaping is certainly a category, but it's not the entire business by any means. And if that is the regulation, then it won't be in the store. It's that simple. And you know, there are other products that we would certainly introduce as well that would be legal at the state level.
Thank you. Ma'am? And then you're next, sir, and then you. And then I had you there, and then you, ma'am.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. My name is Melissa Burton. I'm a lifelong resident. I have 3 kids. know, is right by here. And so we have concerns about not only how it will affect our community, but how it will affect the safety of our children walking to school and getting to school safely. I will also say as an aside, I'm a pediatrician and I have a lot of concerns about marijuana. I don't believe that it's a good thing for our community in general, regardless of this store. That the studies very clearly show and are coming out to show that marijuana recreational in the community is bad for kids, that it increases use in kids. It's something anecdotally we're already seeing. I think that anyone who has kids as a part of that should really think hard about that and do some deep digging about how comfortable you feel standing up there and putting this in our community with our children, because I'm curious. That's not what we're discussing tonight, and I appreciate that. So I just wanted to move on. Mike Ross, you had brought up the zoning issues, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's sort of what we as a group had looked into with respect to this particular store, because that is what we're discussing tonight. And so we took some time to look through Newton's zoning ordinances and with respect to marijuana. And I wanted to bring up a couple issues that perhaps you've already thought about, or maybe you haven't, about how this store actually meets the actual ordinances that we as a community have already decided. I believe it's something that the city council, or one of the groups of the city council, had passed something called like section 610.3. The first was that to be a store like this, it's supposed to have access to a regional roadway. And this store is on Beacon Street, which actually, if you look on the Newton website and you go to the Safe Routes for School, where they actually classify all the roads in Newton, Beacon Street is actually classified as a minor arterial. So that's a step below regional roadway and a step below major arterial. That's called a minor arterial. So I'm curious how that actually meets requirements for this store. Beacon Street only has one lane going each way, and our children, this path here is part of the Safe Routes to School, where our children walk through every day. So having multiple cars where our children are walking to and from school, multiple times a day, and turning in here, and also blocking up traffic and congestion, I don't believe meets that ordinance. The second issue is that in section E7, it says the R&D operations shall not adversely impact nearby uses. So some people have already brought up the farmers market. They brought up the school, Zervis, which is nearby. And also many sports teams and other youth things happen at Cold Spring Park, which is right next door, and it's actually in a butter to this. And at our most recent back to school night at Zervis, our traffic crossing guard mentioned that she has been in contact with local police because that intersection where our kids cross to school is actually so unsafe. There's already been an accident this year, and she has concerns about it. So I'm curious how this potential store, which is maybe not 500 feet, but very close to the Zervis school, will put our kids who are walking to school and getting to and from their activities safely at risk. And then the third issue, and I actually brought this little map, and I thought we could do some copies, but the third issue we saw in the zoning ordinance was that the store is not supposed to be 500 feet from where minors commonly congregate. And one of the things that was really interesting about the Newton website is that you can actually go on and look up, this is 1158 Beacon Street, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So you can actually look that up, and they have a little button where you can put in a butters and you can put in a range. So I put 500 feet, and I'm happy to give you a copy of this. But it actually shows that Cold Spring Park is within the 500-foot circle, and Cold Spring Park is an area where minors commonly congregate. There are sports teams there. There are community education programs there. And most importantly, I just signed permission slips for my children as part of the Zervis first grade curriculum to actually experience Cold Spring Park on a regular basis. It's part of their science program and science curriculum to use Cold Spring Park, and the whole school is there much of the spring. So for me, in putting aside all of my own feelings about marijuana in general, I would love to hear what you have to say and our city councilors have to say about how this site is actually appropriate by our law.
Can I ask one question? What time do the kids go to school in the morning?
So they go to school between 8:20 and 8:30. However, they leave school at 12:30. They leave school at 3. They leave school at 6. Many of whom are on after-school programs or students. And there are multiple events at our school in the evenings, which range from between 6 and 9 o'clock. So multiple times when people are trying to access the school and walking, crossing those streets, parking,
So the
Right.
impact would be after hours open, but as they're going from the school, to the school, we're not open, but from the school and afternoon activities at the school is more the concern.
And I imagine your employees and deliveries are gonna have to arrive before the store opens. Not
Del-
everybody's gonna get there at 9.
Well, the deliveries can arrive anytime we want them to. It's only basically one van per every 3 times a week. But I just want to make sure of the time.
So in terms of, let me start with the 500-foot thing, because I think it's an interesting thing, and I think that there's been a lot of confusion on this. When the regulations initially came out for medical marijuana, there was a term that was used for, and this, we're not proposing medical marijuana here, we're proposing adult use store. We don't have a lot of room in this site. We're gonna be able to just do really one function, not two, not co-locate both. But when those regulations first came out, that term, a location where, a place where children commonly congregate, was used. And the 500-foot distance rule was used as well. So it was getting a little hard to understand. I think that might be why the subsequent laws that came out, or regulations that came out by the CCC and by the state government, changed those regulations for adult use to be 500 feet from a K through 12 school. And you were seeing during the place children commonly congregate, I mean, children are commonly congregating everywhere, so that became the subject for lawsuits, and that started to say, well, it's not an ice cream parlor, but it is, and it started going back and forth, it is a playground. But again, that had to do with the medical marijuana. So when they came out with the regulations for the adult use, they just said K through 12. So that K through 12, 500 feet, that's not just for Newton, that's also for Pittsfield, where, 500 feet is a lot smaller than here in a major city like Newton, where 500 feet is in a much more dense area. But that 500 foot is the same for those communities, unless the local community takes that away. So like in Brookline, they changed that rule from 500 to 100. And that's why it's able to exist within. So the local city council can actually change that from 500. But they can't go the other way. They can't say 1,000. They can go from 500 to 1. So that's the 500 rule. The major arterial, I have not, I'll look at it. It's an interesting thought. I'll take a look at it. What we have to do in order to get, to move forward is we have to take our information and get scoped by the Zoning Board of Appeal. There's actually a form that we fill with all our plans, with our surveys, that we submit to the Zoning Board of Appeal. And their administrator marks it up and says, this is the relief you're going to need, if any. We certainly know that we have to go through the special permit process. And if there are any other violations that were to emerge, we would have to deal with those as well. We did meet with the city's DRT group. We sat down in the basement of City Hall. That's where the technical people of city government sit with us, the transportation people, the public works people, the police, well, maybe not the police, but the transportation, public works, maybe the sewer, those folks. We're in that meeting, and that issue did not come up. And I don't think you're right about it, but I'm going to take a look at it when I get back to the office tomorrow.
Add one thing for that?
Sure.
So just I love the functional classification talk. That's my wheelhouse. What I will say to give you some numbers to put in perspective about the traffic that Beacon Street carries today. I know it's only a 2-lane road, but it averages about 12,000 vehicles per day. We conducted a count. Yeah, we conducted a count.
At that location? Is that what you're talking about? Because Beacon Street's a long street.
So
At what time period?
I want to just take a step back here. I'm trying to deliver this information as efficiently as possible here because I know there's a lot of questions. But so I will read out that we conducted a 24-hour traffic volume and speed count with automatic traffic recorder road tubes. This was in the vicinity of the site frontage. What that indicated is that there's about 12,000 trips per day.
When was this?
We can maybe that's a good question for after, but I can tell you that's a good number for that street, right? And what we're talking about is somewhere in the order of between 250 and 500 trips per day at this site.
It's
So we're talking about not the capacity of Beacon Street, there's no problem with that road holding the amount of traffic that our facility will generate. But I do think we
there
can
are
get
problems
back into
right now.
Sir, right here, go ahead. You got a question? Ma'am, this gentleman had his hands up, and then we're going to this gentleman, and then we're going to, I haven't called on you yet, though. And he hasn't cut anyone off, so go ahead, sir.
Okay. I don't, I want to cut to the chase on this. I don't even understand why this group is trying to put this type of a retail environment, retail store, in a suburban area, okay? You have to hire a traffic engineer, you have to hire a security guard. Listen, if that was a toy store or a clothing store, it would not cause this kind of a problem. I think you guys have a guilty conscience. I think you have some history about what kind of problem this type of business can grow. And I really think that, you know, if you really wanted security, go to the mall. They're always looking for more tenants. If you want traffic, if you want parking, the mall has plenty of parking. If you want the infrastructure, go to the mall. I don't understand why you are choosing this type of location. And by the way, as many people as are here, you would have even more objection to this, because much of the area right around you is a cemetery. There aren't too many people complaining out of there. And then you also got the playground. Got the playground. Kids go to play tennis. My kids used to do go there for soccer. The point is that I think you intentionally chose a place, a location where there aren't as many or as much of a density of residents as if you tried to choose another place. Go to the mall, look for another place. Oh, and by the way, you said a little bit about traffic. I come down Beacon Street about 4, 5, 6 o'clock.
You can't get down.
You can't get down, it's gridlock.
It's gridlock. It's you know, the Walnut Beacon Street light. Okay, the point is I'm backed up almost to Chestnut Street. Oh, and what about the farmers market? Every Tuesday for about 16, 18, 20 weeks, June, July, August, maybe not June, July, August, September, October. Okay, those cars are lined up. There's a police officer there just directing traffic. I didn't hear anything mentioned about that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir? I don't think there's a question. It's a statement of his thought.
Well, there was a question, and I want to answer the question if I can, unless you want to answer. So this is a really good answer to your question. Your neighbors voted for this in this community, and your government created a set of ordinances and overlay districts that dictated exactly where it can and cannot go. And so you're right. Of that area, we actually went and looked and said what's available, what's for rent or for purchase, where can we go, where's a good site, what has parking, and of that group, we did select that area. Newton is one of those communities that voted for cannabis. And I know there's a lot of people in this room who probably voted the other way. Fine, we disagree on our opinions, but the reality is that that election meant that the only way you could change the law would be if you had a ballot initiative that would have reduced the number from, I think 8 is your total number. That ballot initiative failed. And as a result of that, it reopened the door so that these 8 applicants would be able to go in the city. And in the wisdom of your city, they created these areas and they said, rather than have them bunch up in any one area, there needs to be a half-a-mile buffer between these locations. So in the Four Corners area, where yes, you have traffic and whatever would go, and if it was a dry cleaner, there would be more traffic generated as a result of it being there. Someone's going to drive there. Someone is going to drive there. So you understand my point, is that this was a matter of the election. That's the answer.
Sir, go ahead.
I have a few questions about the site. The restaurant, how long is their lease?
It's years. I think
years is not an answer.
Yeah,
how many years?
You told me 2 to 3 years at last meeting.
Several years.
You said 2 to 3.
I think they have the right to renew as well. So for all.
Well, that's a fact I think the community would like to know.
Sure. I mean,
how many parking spaces are allotted to their lease?
3. It's actually 3.
Okay, so does your 18 spaces become 15?
our 12 spaces become 15. And that's
18. It's updated from what you have on there.
We have 18 spaces, but the zoning requirement you're asking about?
Are there 3 more spaces for the restaurant, or
It's
the 18?
all in. 18 all in.
18 all in, so 3 of the spaces you're talking about are already allocated to the restaurant for some indefinite period of time you can't give us because you don't even know how long the lease
Well,
is.
several years.
Okay. There is vacant
But
space.
even if they weren't there, if they were to leave, a new tenant would come in, and they would be required to have parking as well.
Okay.
My only point is that we are exceeding our zoning, and you're right, when I did the math show here, I didn't add the additional 2 spaces, or you say it's 2, I thought it was 3, but I did not add that. Even if you add that, we're still above the number of spaces
I don't
required.
care what the zoning is. I care about what the traffic is going to be
That's
in the
the
parking
law
in
that
my
we're
community.
that's the-
I live across the street. I don't want people parking in my parking lot because they want to go there. But let me finish my thought. There's an empty space next to the restaurant, equal in space probably to the restaurant. I would assume you would try to rent that out to get rental income if you own that building. How many parking spaces go with that are going to also come out of the 18
I'm sorry,
spaces?
where are you talking about?
There, the building the space to the left of the restaurant is vacant.
That's gonna remain vacant. We don't have plans for that
Okay,
space.
when the lease is up, what prevents you owning the building from doubling the size of your facility? So now we have a 5,000 plus square foot marijuana facility in our space.
The license, our applications, the law, this zoning thing that you're not paying attention to, but you said because you live across the street, that actually has consequences. We can't go.
Excuse me?
You said that you're not caring about the zoning, right? You live across the
I
street.
said I'm caring about the neighborhood and parking in the
What I'm saying
neighborhood.
is what governs our behavior is the zoning. It's the law of the.
What controls your legal requirements are that. There's a practical aspect of what goes on. There's a practical aspect of, you mentioned in your first presentations, you could park on the street. There is no street parking within 500 feet of that space. You can't park before Cold Springs. So there have been I think that you guys have given short shift to the parking issues in the neighborhood.
See, I don't think excuse me, and I apologize for stepping in. I don't know anywhere, and in my 30 years that I was in public service, that I sat in community meetings, that I could get agreement on traffic. Because I live in Dorchester, and the traffic issue coming on 93 from people coming in and out of the city, it's horrible. And as a result, my insurance is up. So my people always complain about the traffic. I am not going to discount the traffic being an issue. We do have an existing business. We we asked where we could go. We didn't walk into the city and say, hey, by the way, this is the spot I'm picking. There are legal requirements. It's a new industry. All of us are trying to figure out how to do it right. Some of us, believe it or not, got into it because we're trying to figure out how to do it right. Because it is coming in, and it's either going to be us who's here facing you, or some nameless, faceless person that's from somewhere else that comes in, because in some parts of the state, that's how it happens. We do care about the traffic because the traffic impacts you. That means it impacts us, as we're there as regular corporate citizens, and we've got to figure it out. And some of it, we're going to be figuring it out by sitting with your government representatives, because they're actually bright people who care about the community too, and you elect them to do a job. And we sit with them to try to figure it out. They looked, and there are 4 locations on that strip that was looked at that said, okay, this is where you can go. They did their assessment, and based upon the assessment, they felt that this was the best fit for the moment, because you know what? The city's hands are tied too. Because
You know what? You're talking like you live in this neighborhood. These are people that live in this neighborhood. This has not been approved. And I don't really appreciate you raising your voice and talking to people
I have
like
a
you're
loud voice.
Yeah, I thought you weren't feeling good.
I have
I'm so
a loud
sorry.
voice, and I'm not feeling good.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get too close to me. I don't disagree with you being upset. I don't.
We need to clarify that this is not a marijuana zone. This is a B2 zone. Any B2 zone in Newton can have a marijuana retailer.
That's correct.
There is an idea in the community that somehow Four Corners has been like made this marijuana retail zone and that
hold
there
on.
is nothing we can
But
do.
hold on
And
a
it's
second.
absolutely not true.
Hold on a
City
second.
council
That's not-
can vote to not
not
approve
entirely
a
true.
proposal.
That's not entirely
Yes,
true.
it is true.
Here's
It is
why
true.
I have spoken to City
You
Hall.
have to go
It
to
is
the land
true.
use
This
committee.
is not predestined
It's
for
not
marijuana.
predestined.
Nothing is
We are
predestined.
not up here
Nothing
saying
is
it's
She
predestined.
just said
No.
that if she's not here, someone else is
Someone
gonna
else
do
would
it.
be here.
Somebody would be in.
No, someone would be here.
There are 4 applications along that strip.
Yes, and they had to pick one. They
Okay.
felt they had to pick one and
And they
had to pick
picked,
the best
okay?
one.
And no matter where we go, I guess all I'm suggesting, I can't discount, I'm not discounting your anger or being upset. I'm suggesting no matter what neighborhood we're going into, you're going to find the problem with traffic.
Really, your Framingham store is right on Route 9 with 6
And we
lanes of
had the
traffic,
same-
right by the mall.
And the same
You need
concerns
to find
with
a
traffic,
spot like that.
because behind us is a neighborhood. Behind us is a neighborhood, and they all came out. And they're all concerned. And so I guess my end game is, whether we get it or not, whoever comes in, how do we work to ameliorate it? Because I think that is what's going to
We
have
can
to
get rid of
happen.
the zone altogether, so
Okay,
nobody
ma'am,
can come
you
into
had your
the
hand up.
strip.
I'm sorry, you, ma'am, it's the gentleman in the back, and then you, ma'am, I'm sorry, I forgot that she had in the queue for a while. Ma'am, you asked the first question. Once I get to everyone once, I'll come back to you. Let's go ahead, ma'am. Not you, ma'am.
Yes, hi. So I had a question and then I had some comments because I have experience with my family is from California, originally from California. My parents live in a neighborhood where the first marijuana then recreational store came in to a neighborhood. And their neighborhood is very similar to Newton. Very similar. There's a congressperson who lives there. There's a lot of federal judges that live there. Very beautiful, safe neighborhood. And my father's joke was always, this is the safest neighborhood. We don't lock our doors. And if you leave a 20 on my doorstep, when you come back, there'll be 2 10s. That's how safe it was. I go visit him every year with my children. And when that started, all of a sudden, petty thefts went up. Break-ins to cars, not actually larceny in your house, but petty people going around the neighborhood, people that we've never seen in the neighborhood ever before. I couldn't walk my children to the ice cream store or to the park without smelling marijuana, seeing people that had been consuming, and then I would take them to the park, and a lot of people they would buy would go to the park. This is my personal experience. I'm not saying this is exactly what's going to happen here, but this is my personal experience, what I've seen. And it took people with a lot of power, federal judges, a U.S. congressperson, not a state, a U.S. congressperson in their neighborhood before, and that's why I was addressing your nuisance policy.
Yeah.
That they said, oh, it's going to be fine because it's medical marijuana, and it's going to be fine because we have all this we have all these one-way streets here, and it's never going to be a problem here. It took years for that nuisance policy to finally come down and have it shut down. Like at least 3 to 4.
Look, I appreciate your eyewitness.
Wait, I'm not done. So you can have them sign that. I think you have great intentions, but you don't know where they go. And I actually talked to a council person, and I'm not going to name any names, who came to my door the other day, and I said this story to this person, and they said, well, you have no problem with liquor stores. And I said, well, I really don't think that if someone buys a bottle of wine or a bottle of liquor, like with an edible or something, they may accidentally drop it or leave it on the street, and then my child can pick it up. And their answer was, well, you're just fooling yourself if you think your children are never going to be exposed to underage drinking. And I thought that was the weirdest response to me ever. Because the fact of the matter is that since edibles have come out, and I think that's my biggest issue, is the edibles that can be dropped accidentally. My child, if he saw a gummy on the floor, he would pick it up in 2 seconds flat and put it in his mouth. Okay? I know this. Near a school, that scares me even more. And I don't even live near Zervis, but I feel your pain. Okay? So I think, wait, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So for someone to tell me that liquor stores are not an issue, this is, I'm telling you what I've experienced, and that this is, in theory, a great policy, but you're not going to walk outside with everyone and make sure that they don't pop those gummies in their mouth, that they don't go to the local park. Because I've had it happen where I live, where people are smoking right across the street from my place, and I've had to say, can you please just not do it in front of my house? And the last thing I'm going to say is, I am a minority. I am a brown person. And what I feel sometimes was kind of like fed to us wrong was, oh, this is really for like decriminalizing marijuana. You know what? I thought that was kind of a really big bill of goods that was sold to me, because I've experienced this where I grew up. Okay, and yes, there was something about it, but I vote, or whoever voted for decriminalizing, I applaud you. But I didn't vote, or anyone that I know voted for, legalizing recreational. So when you kind of bring that argument in, oh, we're helping to
There was no
bring the
election.
stigma away and decriminalizing, I know a lot of people that voted for that, but didn't necessarily vote for recreation.
But Newton did. Newton did.
Actually,
So, ma'am, after the meeting, if you could give me the location of that store, I will reach out to that police department and pull their crime stats for the 2 years prior and currently now. Ma'am, you spoke. I want to give you a chance to respond. So I'll pull the crime stats there because I've done it for Brookline, I've done it for Newton, I've done it for Salem, I've done it for all of the dispensaries open up in Massachusetts. That story is different than what the police chiefs in Brookline, Salem, and Newton have said. We haven't seen crime go up around Garden Remedies in Newton. We haven't seen crime go up around Brookline. We've seen generally, ma'am, I sit
someone next to someone who lives behind that store in Brookline, and her child goes to Taekwondo studio that my child goes to, and she says that the traffic is crazy. People do smoke in the neighborhood, and there's lots of trash and litter now.
Yes.
She told me
Sorry
this
to intervene,
just a
but
couple days ago.
I
Okay,
recommend
so
everyone.
if you give me the location, I'll pull the stats because no, not in Brookline, the story you're talking about California, because we haven't seen crime go up in any other locations. In fact, we've seen crime go down. Quincy said crime go down.
Check your data. Check your data.
I have checked the data.
Yes, we have to stress what
So,
she said.
sir,
I recommend everyone reading the Brooklyn Top
sir in the back with the tie.
about Neta,
Sir,
and it's completely opposite to what
you're
you
up next.
said, and it's exactly what you said.
As soon as this gentleman who wasn't called on call.
Because you never called me.
One of the required.
Could you just interrupt?
Required to have
Yes.
part of it.
Yes.
My second question is, would you be willing to have another meeting in the community in which you propose to have a store?
Yes.
We are in
Someone
West
can help
Newton,
us with a location that you find.
First Unitarian Universalist Church.
Okay, yeah.
Hold on, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean,
And
there've been,
then, ma'am, and then you, sir.
there have been a lot of
You know
complaints
what?
about the suitability
And then
of
I-
this site.
She's
And
next.
to be honest with you, I think the questions really should be directed at our city councilors who said that these are good sites to have. That's one point I'd like to have. Because
Okay,
we have an
can I-
election
can
coming
I-
up,
I wanna
so if
come-
you
I
don't
wanna
like
come back-
these
I wanna
sites
come back
that
on
people have
site
done.
because you
Yeah?
raised it, and I didn't mean to dispense, but you said that there's no one zone, marijuana zone. You're right. They've been relegated to certain districts.
All B2 zones.
B2s.
And they actually can
Let me finish.
expand
So
the zones.
when you add that half-mile rule, however, you start to force the city to choose certain areas in where they will be. And if, in absence of that, you would be in violation of your own law. And so someone like us could come in and say, hey, Newton, you only put them here, or you only put it, and we are not being allowed, or so let's say you take Four Corners off the map, right? And only 7 are cited throughout Newton. And there's the last remaining location is, right, but there's a half-mile zone.
They can expand zoning to other zonings. They can expand to M1 and M2.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's maximum.
It has to have 20%. It has to have 20% of the number of liquor
Then
stores.
what we need to do is ask the city council, and we need to open other zones.
Okay, but that's
Because
different when you were saying.
We shouldn't have to have your store in our residential neighborhood just because there's no place else for it to go.
But
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's different. what you're
Okay.
saying.
I have a completely different question on the ownership of Union Twist. I'm sure you've all read the recent Boston Globe expose titled "For Sale in the Pot Industry: Political Influence." I'm sure you've all read it. That uncovered that there are two big cannabis investors, Greg Fromeyer and Abner Curtin, who started an investment company called JM10 Investments, so I know you're all familiar with, that started up and invested in multiple companies seeking cannabis license throughout the state in order to get around the 3-store limit that a company can't have more than 3 stores. And the Globe's reporting found that JM10 Investments started and invested in Union Twist, Ascend Wellness, who is also applying for a license in Newton, and Blue Jay Botanicals, that is applying to open in the Union Twist building, owned by JM10's owners. If all of these stores open, that will be 7 known stores in 3 interrelated companies owned or controlled by major shareholders of JM10 Investments in Massachusetts, with many more stores in 3 other states. And now it appears that Tahira Ramatula, I hope I said your name right, Ramatula, has taken over as president from Greg Promeyer of JM10 Investments into Union Twist. However, the JM10 or the Union Twist Holdings still has the same address as Greg Fromeyer. So it seems to be all kind of interconnected, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Have you bought Union Twist?
No.
Has Hyper Ventures bought Union Twist? Is JM10 Investments still in it? And how many other licenses in Massachusetts are you or all these other investors, investing in?
I am only involved with Union Twist. Greg is involved with JM10. I am not. Abner is involved with JM10. I am not. I am only with Amy and Marie. The 3 of us are only involved with Union Twist. Hyper Ventures is a separate entity that I'm actually no longer with. It was a venture capital fund, also in cannabis, but it has nothing to do with this. That's just, some of the information is incorrect in there. It's dated. I did take over Greg as a managing member because of his close link with JM10 on the investment side, and we wanted only the managing members of the entity itself to be on the ownership. As for the address, I think it just hasn't been updated yet, to be honest. It's not still Greg's address, so I think that's just a delay in updating the information.
So who actually owns, I think there's 2 entities. There's Union Twist Inc. and Union Twist Holding LLC, I believe, that's on the state corporation website. Who actually owns this facility and the license? Who are doing that?
The answer is investors and investors. And the issue of what you're talking about is control. And the state actually just rewrote what control means. And they made it in light of, I think, the Globe reporting, which some was very good at what they did, some they were a little off. But I think we all agree, we want to know who these people are. They tighten the regulations at the state level about what control means. It is possible, I could invest, Mike Ross, could invest 9.9% in every single cannabis entity in Massachusetts. Once you go past 10%, you now establish control. And there are other mechanisms that determine what control is. So you might see a lot of investors in a lot of different dispensaries throughout Massachusetts, throughout the country. But there are now, anyway, bright line rules about what it means for control. In terms of other entities that might be, so then there's real estate holding companies that just, I'm a lawyer, I would advise any of my clients, whether they're in cannabis or not in cannabis, to, if they're gonna run a business, for tax reasons, for liability reasons, to hold the real estate in a different LLC. And so there might be a reason why you might have a holding company. And so this is corporate law, this is just entity creation, and it's pretty standard across the space. The thing that we have to look at in order to make sure that there is no violation is this issue of control. And that is the issue that was just tightened up by the state. They have brand new regulations, you can look at them, they're on their website at CCC Mass, and they do tighten up the rules.
So the people that the mayor signed this HTA agreement with, who are the owners and control people, as you say, of Union Twist, are they the same people who own it now, or has it been sold?
No,
I mean, are we looking at completely different?
Since the mayor's report was issued to her, it's been the same entity all along. As Tahira mentioned, there might be some addresses still trying to catch up with the entities themselves, just a matter of submitting paperwork, but it's the same entity.
And the same owners?
But I would suggest to you that it will change. It will evolve. There will be, entities we can't go to the bank and get a loan. So that's the first thing about this industry, because there's Congress has some legislation right now to try to allow banks to finance cannabis. But until that happens, we have to get our funding from people, not from banks. And so it's going to change. It's going to evolve. We're going to bring in other investors. The management of the company and the corporate positions of the company, or the C-suite, if you will, or the chief executive officer, or the chief financial officer, or those types of positions are, as you see here. It's Marie, it's Tahira, it's Amy, and Tahira is also the manager of the entity as well. So that's our current control base. To change that, we would have to go back. I'm not sure if the city's going to create a control rule, but we would have to go back into the state and issue a control change, which takes a while and is a process. So in order to make those changes, there's a lot of people looking at that, in part because of some of the articles that you talked about. Yes, Councilor?
Can I just add a clarifying question about the zoning?
Yeah.
You said,
Brenda Noel.
Newton has to have vape.
Ma'am, the gentleman there, the lady there, and then the lady in, right. Go ahead, ma'am, you're up. Sorry, be patient.
Oh, yeah, where's the name Union Twist come from?
Where's the name Union Twist comes from?
How did you get the name?
So, it came from a shop, there's a growth facility that folks are looking at, I guess it's in Athol, and in fact, I met the people. They were out there, they used to create tools out there. I haven't seen the location, I know Amy's been out, and so she was out there, and that is where they created tools. It's an old factory that shut down umpteen years ago. And people were looking at it for a large growth facility because we're looking for people to partner with in order to be able to have product. And that is where the name came from. And I believe they were called Union Twist.
Union Tool.
Thank you. And we took it and did a.
And the writing is the same as was on the manufacturing site.
And that facility is owned by Ascend Wellness. Are you connected in some way?
We went to look at their grow facility because.
I'm sorry, what?
I went to look at the grow facility when they were in the development phase because you have to have suppliers. You'll have more than one strain of suppliers, but you have to have suppliers. So one of the things we went out to, and this is way in the infancy, and I went out to the facility and it really was a shutdown tool factory with literally the tools on the ground. And it's on the river, it's out in Athol, and we didn't have a name. We were thinking Jardin at one point. We had a few other names we were thinking of, and we found out that name had already been licensed in a lot of different places.
At a restaurant.
Because that was originally on our application in Framingham, if you look at, research our company. And I loved the facility, I thought it was really cool. I was doing the tour, I was talking to them about what they were gonna be doing there. And that's when we came up with the name.
And let me just say something about Ascend. So we have to buy our product from somewhere, and not every company is going to offer, there's a lot of competition right now to even get product. The people from Ascend are from here. They're Boston people. We know them. We know them from just being
because they started your company.
40
they started Union Twist.
We've known
Rick
them.
Fromar with JM10
We've known
started
these,
Union
We've known
Twist.
these people way, way, way back.
I'm sorry?
So
My child went to nursery school with one of the people.
Yeah.
I've known them for
So
years,
people,
25 years.
people inevitably are like, hey, I want to start a cannabis company. How do I purchase product? Okay, well, we have this great company. Come over, take a look. This is, there's other companies like Arizona companies and California companies. They would love to sell to us. They really would. But we know these people. So there's a good reason why we're even talking to Ascend in the first place.
Okay, sir, and then sir, you'll be after this woman here, after this woman here. So go ahead, sir.
Thanks for speaking with us. I have a simple question. So right now you're by appointment only, which is 15-minute appointments, 3 at a time. So that's 12 people an hour.
So I just want to, roughly, we still have to go through the planning and assess what we're seeing in other areas. I mean, we're tentatively thinking that based on what we've seen in other locations. We're not tied to that. We'll study it to see, does a 20-minute make sense, 2 people at a time, but
Okay.
it was a rough
But you're by appointment only?
Yes.
Okay, so roughly 12 to 10 to 20 people an hour, which seems on
But
par
that's-
with.
You see all those point of sales up there. We can handle more than 3 people at a time.
Okay. Sorry. So you're by appointment only.
Yes.
All right. So that is on par with, say a coffee shop, which is going to have maybe 10 to 20 people an hour. You may have 10 to 20 people an hour, something like that. Does that sound reasonable?
Not Dunkin' Donuts, but okay.
Not that Dunkin', but and obviously we want that commercial area to be successful because it's been a little dilapidated. Well, what is going to prevent you from being not by appointment only? Is that going to be in writing? Is that going to be a law? Because that is the big distinction. Having 10 to 20 people an hour versus a line out the door like there is in Brookline is a tremendous distinction in my opinion. So what is going to keep you appointment only for
So I
good?
can't speak for the whole council, but there's been a lot, very strong consensus on the council that appointment only is what works. That prevents us from looking like what no one wants to look like Brookline. So I can't speak for the whole council, I can speak for myself. I will absolutely not vote on this unless it's for appointment only. It's gonna be part of the special permit process.
For how long?
Forever. As long as they're gonna be part of the special permit.
For Framingham location is by appointment.
But this is.
That's
Yeah.
We have a
Except for
couple of
recommendation.
tools, your city council has a couple of tools in the toolbox, this is one of them. And I can't speak for the whole council, but this is one we're gonna use. There's, I think you very eloquently said, a lot of this is in the state level, but we have a couple of tools. And the good news is, it seems like our team here is very open to that. They don't wanna mess on Beacon Street either. And so we have a lot of data, the chief of police has said appointment only works. The chief of police has spoken to me and said that there have not been cases of DUI outside of garden remedies. We're living and learning that this is the way to go. And I can assure you, the city council is gonna use every tool in its toolbox to make sure, Newton stays the community that we love. We're gonna do everything we can.
My only point is that, I think this is a terrible location for this type of business for all the reasons that have been discussed. I think if you want to do business, I think it's a bad location because it's hard for you to get customers in and out. But, the big distinction, it has to stay appointment only. If this is gonna come, it's gotta be appointment only forever. And please make that happen.
Ben?
Okay, I have two quick questions. As far as the parking, if for some reason the parking lot is filled in the back, how does one turn around, make a U-turn and come back up?
So the minimum drive aisle for a parking lot that's configured like this is 24 feet. And that allows for a car that's parked, that's, pulled into that 90-degree space.
Yeah, but what if it's all filled and you can't pull in to turn around? Where are you gonna turn around?
Oh, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. There is, there, at the end of the aisle, at the end of the drive aisle, there's a little bit of space there that could help, but there's also the hatched out area, next to the accessible space. The other thing that I will say is that, Dan, you wanna go from there?
Yeah, so part of quality of life is making sure that the traffic, whether it's Newton Police are assisting with details or our team, if we don't have any space in back to have people come in, then our security team is going to be up in the front, and people are going to be pulling in the driveway, and we're going to say, sorry, we don't have time for you, we don't have an appointment, and they're going to go right out and out the other side.
Is there gonna be a parking attendant there all the time?
There'll be a security official who's responsible for parking.
Is your security official also have a parking?
Yes.
I have another question, security question. You said you're gonna check people in as they come in the door or whatever.
So before you get in the door, we check your license. You get in the door, we scan your license and recheck the ID. When you make a purchase, we scan it again to say that you purchased this product.
Do you know if a person A who comes in has a problem with another facility? Are you gonna know that?
So currently, so I can tell you if he's got a problem with another Union Twist facility.
No,
Our system, there is currently no system in place. However, I just met with a technology agent, and I'm going to try and introduce them to the Cannabis Control Commission, where they could have just like the medical system, you could have a statewide tracking. And I think, as the former police officer, that we should have that because people can go to 10 different facilities and buy 10 different times.
Right.
But if we have a system where it tracks it across the state, and the state is holding the data, that, wait a minute, Dan Linsky just bought an ounce and met the day's minimum in Newton, and he just showed up in Brookline, that he would be flagged from the system. That doesn't exist today.
Never mind about buying. What if they have an issue with, I don't know, smoking outside or some other, passing it on to a kid?
Right. We would not be able to tell if another facility had problems. If it was a Union Twist facility, if they go to Framingham and have a challenge, then they will not be coming to our Newton facility.
Unless Newton tells us. If the Newton Police Department says, hey, look out for this person, we'll put them on our list.
Or we see a news report that someone was arrested or that there was a car crash and they came from, X store, then we're not willing to have that person as a client. We can certainly put there in our system to not come in.
Excuse me.
So, ma'am,
Liz,
you would.
have already talked. Okay, so I have several questions. First of all, I just learned tonight you own the building. Is that correct? The whole building?
Yeah, we will once we're successful.
Okay, so you have
permitting
control over
contingent.
what other tenant or tenants
Correct.
there might be.
Correct.
Okay, just keep that in mind, everyone. Now, the space between appointments, it's every 15 minutes, and I would assume that if you miss your 15-minute slot, you're out of luck, right? So people will be coming early to make sure they get in on time. So now we're not talking about 3 cars for this, we're talking about 6 cars at least, because people are gonna come so they can make sure they're there when their appointment time is.
So just like a doctor's office, some people come early, some people come late, and just like a doctor's office, they might have to wait. We have a queuing area where we can get people inside and they can sit and wait. And we also aren't averse to saying to somebody, you know what, we can't fit you right now. You're going to have to go to Dunkin' Donuts or someplace else and come back in 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Park at Dunkin' Donuts instead, and then while they're there, they're gonna pick up the space
So, okay, but that's a side.
You asked a
comment.
question, I give you an answer,
Okay,
ma'am.
I have some other questions. First of all, you talked about cash, 3 figures, that's $25,000, right? Or more? Up to 99,000,
Yeah,
correct?
5 figures means the highest it could be would be 99,996.
On-site, in cash,
That would be the highest it could possibly be.
in cash.
If it was
Are your
5
security guards gonna have license to carry?
No, there'll be no firearms in the facility, except for if Newton Police decides to put a detail there. We will have a cash management program. We have delayed drop safes. We have the ability in Massachusetts to use banks, like Century Bank, that's a state-sponsored bank, and credit unions. There's also now technology for this, where people load a card and they charge it to their app, just like Dunkin' Donuts. And along with appointment only, we'll also have technology that it might not be the 15 minutes, where people can ahead of time order, I want this product, and it's prepared and ready for them at the door. They come in and it's a 1-minute transaction where they identify themselves, verify themselves, go in the system and come back.
They still have to make an appointment, those people, those pick up and carry still have to make an appointment?
They would, yes.
Okay, next question. You talked about being a good neighbor, right? You know, and about worrying about the neighbors, but you didn't talk about the park, being a good neighbor in the park, okay? You left out the park. Which
No, I talked about the entire neighborhood, ma'am. I talked about people who are smoking marijuana, consuming marijuana in the park. I very specifically used those words, anywhere in the community. We want to make sure that no one who is using our facility is negatively impacting the community in any way, shape, or form. So I specifically mentioned the park, absolutely.
And my last comment or question is, not only do you have elementary school children walking to school, you have middle school children, there's a bus stop, okay, over kind of pretty much a half a mile from that, and middle school kids who live in the back of that facility, they have to walk past that area to get to the school bus.
And
now in the morning, that wouldn't be,
we're open afterwards.
I'll
Yep.
grant it that in the morning, but on the way back, going home, your facility will be open.
Right.
And I think 9 to 9, 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday, including Sunday. I think that's a little bit much for this area. Most things in Newton close at 9.
So that's one of the things I think the team wanted to hear from the community is what the hours should be. Should we change them? Right. So if school was at 9 o'clock, maybe we want to open at 9:30.
No Sunday.
We're hearing you on that. As far as the kids walking by the facility, they can't come in. It's 21 only.
No, but
they won't know what it is.
And they will know what it is.
Let me just tell you right now. After Brookline opened, they located a daycare facility at the location after Netta was open. The children who were at Brookline, that facility opened after it was a licensed cannabis facility. If you ask those parents, I think the fact that they're still bringing their kids there haven't been issues, even though Netta has a significant line issue.
Well, I would grant you those kids know what's there. They probably have, they know it. Come on.
Go ahead, sir.
Is Uber gonna be delivering?
No.
That's not, the state won't allow that.
So just,
There's a separate delivery process that's very.
So, ma'am, it's this gentleman. He's been very patient. Go ahead, sir.
Just 2 comments. There was an article in the Brooklyn Top maybe a week ago or so about Netta, and it's completely opposite to what you're saying, and it's more in line to what the lady that left was saying.
It's the opposite in that.
Okay. And now my second comment, just a general comment. I grew up in Colombia, the country, and not Missouri. The accent doesn't reveal it. And I have family members, a judge in the Supreme Court that was murdered, trying to prevent basically drugs flowing from Colombia to the United States. And it is deeply depressing that you guys stand there telling us a story of how you're helping the community when the only motivation for you to open the store is to be filthy rich. And that's
measures around your facility, inside cameras, looking at IDs, etc. But what happens to those customers who because they're not appropriately presenting what they're allowed to do. They can go around, they can be frustrated, they can hurt neighborhoods. You don't know what's going on around. And also people who buy marijuana and they leave. You don't know where they go. They can go into the park and smoke and nobody knows. Do you have cameras? Do you have security guards that go there and check? No.
How many security guards?
So, they can go to the park today and do that. If somebody takes a picture of them and they're one of our customers, they won't be getting their product from us anymore. Right now, every adult, just so we're clear in the law, every adult in Newton can grow 6 plants. It's in the market's there. So if I don't see them saying, well, I don't have the proper ID or I've been banned from this property, saying I'm going to come and hang out and do malicious around here where there's security officers and cameras and people who know them with Newton police putting a focus on our area, I suspect they'll go home and grow it in their own backyard.
So whatever there is now, this is going to grow much higher when you have all these available in our area. And you don't have any way to actually improve our security and enforce your measures into the neighborhood.
We do.
I just feel
We
that
actually do.
you understand that there is a risk and you try, but the fact that there is a risk, we don't want this risk.
I understand.
In our area.
Go to the mall.
I understand. So we have security, and they have dual functions, right? So they're doing parking, they're doing compliance checks, they're checking IDs. There'll probably be 3 people at any given time that are responsible for security. We'd have the ability, if somebody called up and said, hey, we're over the park, there's somebody over here, to have somebody, a manager, one of our security team leads, to go over and identify what's going on. We want to give Newton Police a system called Mutual Link, where they can look at the cameras that are around our facility, and they can look at them in their headquarters or in their police vehicles. That's a system that once they have it, they could grab school cameras and look at them live time. They could grab cameras in commercial areas that people, if they want the police to have their cameras, in an emergency, the police could hit a button and look at those cameras in an emergency. If the police department says to me, you know what, we're really concerned about this park and we need to do something about the park to mitigate more than what we have, and they want cameras there and the community wants it, we'd be willing to pay for a camera that runs on our system that the police can access.
We need to worry about it.
Exactly. It's a quiet residential
Let me
neighborhood.
just interject. This has come up a few times tonight. Someone asked us how we can stand up here and kiss our kids goodnight and all those things. Let me just try to address it a little bit here. And this gentleman comes from Colombia. In this country, in the 1930s, alcohol was a prohibition, right? So it was not legally available. And that's where you got the mafia and murders and terrible things that happened. With the drug war in this country, it's been similar. Heinous, horrible murders, crime, and danger. And our kids, when I went to New North High School, I knew where I could get marijuana, okay? I knew where to get it. I didn't, I wasn't a big, but I could get it right down the hall from one of the kids in their locker. Okay, it's there now, it was there then, it was there when I went, it's there. All right. They now have a regulation process that, not through anecdotes that lady said behind you, through actual data, real data that you can pull from your phone and from Google, from other states that have done this. There's now 31 states or 33 states that have some form of legal process in place out of the 50 states that exist. And they are seeing a drop in crime and a drop in childhood use in those communities.
That's not true. It's not true in Colorado.
No, in Colorado too. In Colorado too.
Yeah, has come out very strongly against this because the evidence shows that recreational marijuana in the community increases use in adolescents because it shows, first of all, a permissive atmosphere where they see adults using it and think it's okay, and they have increased access to get it. It is very different than alcohol because marijuana actually changes the growing, developing adolescent brain, which is still changing up until you're 25. And so that is an extremely dangerous thing. We also see that it's linked to mental health issues. There's a huge link, which is a huge problem in our teens. So I'm happy to hear you talk about your business and how you're going to plan to run it if it works. But please don't preach to us about the safety or the good effects or anything to do with children.
I was responding to your comment. I was responding to your comment asking me how I can kiss my children goodnight or whatever you said. I was responding to that comment.
Yeah, but I'd like to just add as a child psychiatrist that what you were smoking when you were in high school was 1 to 2% THC. What we're looking at now is 75 to 90% THC, which is increasing the
risk of psychosis in kids, anxiety and depression, amotivational syndrome, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, things you would never have seen 20 years ago.
We
It is-
agree.
well,
We all
no, so
agree.
what that
No
is
one
what you
wants
are
children to
selling.
smoke this. None of us.
Then we shouldn't have the store because you are making our jobs
That's where we
harder.
disagree. Because your neighbors disagreed with you. And the vast majority of states in this country
Majority of
also
people
disagreed with you.
For
by-
and against marijuana in general
But
in
it's-
this city, which
It's
They
highly
voted for it. They
regulated.
voted for it.
It's highly regulated.
for
Does,
and
has
voting
anyone,
against it were greater than the people who voted
I'm
no
sorry.
overall. It was a
You either voted for it or against it.
has anyone seen,
It doesn't matter if we, Newton has agreed to have dispensaries.
correct,
Right.
But,
Ma'am,
that doesn't
when they
mean,
stop, you're
that
next,
doesn't
ma'am.
mean
Thank
that they want it inside
Yes.
the
Thanks for
neighborhood.
being
Right. No one wants it
Everybody
in
who
their
wants to
neighborhood.
get it can drive a few miles out of town in places where they are not full of kids, schools, homes, and buy it. I'm not against it if people want it.
Everyone wants to go to heaven, and no one wants to die. Okay, I mean that's the issue. I mean,
I have two questions that have nothing to do with cannabis.
Yes.
Okay, the first is, you said you wanted community involvement, or you wanted our opinions. This is a city of almost 90,000 people. Nobody who I know knew about this meeting. How did you publicize this meeting?
It was in the newspaper. I mean, first of all, there's a pretty good turnout here.
Well,
Number one.
not
Number
for
two.
90,000 people, but two of my council members didn't know anything about it.
Good. She got a flyer.
It wasn't. Okay, folks. If we
They had
feel
48
that,
hours to decide if they were gonna come. You're
Okay.
full of
How
crap.
did you publicize it,
You're full of
please?
crap.
What do you mean I'm full of crap?
All right.
We had
You're
7
full of
days.
crap.
We had
48
7 days.
hours. 48
How did you
Yes, sir.
publicize it?
We had 7 days notice in the newspaper. It was in the Newton Tab.
Ma'am, your question was published in the Newton tab.
Okay.
A paid ad in the Newton Tab.
My second question has to do, is for Matt. You took a 24-hour traffic study. It yielded 12,000 trips. Do you know what day of the week that was? And do you know what season that was?
Thursday, March 28th.
Was that Thursday? Okay. I have lived right near there off of Beacon Street for 25 years, and the traffic has gotten so impossible.
Yeah.
It is gridlock. And when you say you're adding 50 trips in the afternoon at your peak hour, it is unimaginable for those of us who live near
We're also
there.
gonna put a housing place right next door where the restaurant was.
Ma'am?
That's more traffic.
Yeah, I have a few questions. When you talk about security guards, maybe you could address this one. Of the 12 employees that will be there at one time, how many will be security guards? Is the first question.
There'll be at least 3 that have security duties, and those, my belief is that we cross-train people to be able to back up, so if we're short on a purchasing POS system, somebody can take that. If we need extra security, we can close a POS and have somebody go out to the lot. So I would say 3 people with security responsibilities. There's always going to be somebody who's a security manager that's on site, and we're trying to decide whether we're going to have in-house security or whether we're going to contract out to an agency, depending on, so it might be easy to contract out just to make sure we're covering the shifts. But we would have the same contractual people over and over again for a week, because there's some specific training that has to go into this facility and other training that my team does for teams that work with us in security.
On that vein, is there from the city council perspective, Chief, or anything that we can do with respect to mandating certain number of security guards and basic level training and things like that?
I don't,
What was the question?
She said if on that level is there teeth for the city council to mandate security guards, number of guards and stuff.
I think it's, I would need to find that out. It would be a special permit requirement, so I don't know the answer to that.
And certainly the chief of police can, as he did with Gordon Remedies.
Look, I get it. You're a former chief of police in Boston, you understand the neighborhood, but when you start talking about and maybe you do, maybe you don't, Boston and Newton are not the same thing, obviously. But then when you start talking about subcontracting out, and maybe it's 3, but we're gonna cross-train, but we don't really know, that is a slippery slope to not having anyone, or maybe a figurehead person who's not really very capable.
I gotcha.
You drive by Route 9 and Brookline any day, and it's madness with the velvet rope, and it's multiple people who are in security guard-looking outfits, but, and that doesn't, and I recognize you say you're gonna have appointments, but if we also go down the path of we're doing appointments for now, until now, whenever now is over, and then it's not now.
You,
Who knows
you
what
can
that
put,
looks like?
the teeth that you can put into the special permit are called conditions. They're on the back page, and they're added, and they're requirements, and we have to live up to them. So it might say that we have to have certain,
In perpetuity.
whatever
the
it says in
licensing.
that box
Yeah,
is what I have to do.
however long they have. to
Yeah,
last.
whatever they say, whatever they can do. I mean, forever's a
So-
very long time, but
But
when it
yes,
says
for
forever,
the
then that's
effective
what I
level.
have to do. This guy's been, this man has been.
Until they petition the city council to change the conditions of the special permit.
Couple more questions.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been waiting
go
very
ahead, go
long. Okay, so we talked about publicizing, which was part of my thing, but we also talked earlier this evening about having another forum that would be closer to the location
Yeah,
where
that's-
people who actually live. So what's the next step for that? How will we be notified? When will that happen?
If someone has I think Nathaniel, you had offered to,
I'm Nathaniel Whitten. I'm president of the New Highlands Neighborhood Area Council. We meet the first Thursday of the month at the Brigham House. If these people are willing, we're certainly happy to host you in an upcoming meeting. I can't give you whether it's
That's
gonna be
not
next
large
month.
enough. That's a different.
You're looking at me, he suggested it, not me.
if anyone has a
Do you have a
suggestion,
suggestion?
we're happy
Do you have a
to
site?
meet.
I'm telling you, it's a different part of the town.
Yeah.
I can give you a call.
I'll give you my card. I mean, who's the closest?
Zivers School. Zivers School can easily book the space.
Yeah.
Would they have us?
Have it at Zervis.
Yeah, at Zivers.
I'll reach out to the head of service.
They have a
No, not
cafeteria,
Zivers. I mean, we
which
can
is
book it.
available for rental.
Yes.
I mean,
The left
the
side
other
of the
option
building.
is Woburn Library Center, for people on the Woburn side. Woburn has an area council.
It's too far away.
No, just Zivers School, they have a place for rent.
Yeah.
You can rent for the place of Zivers School very
And if you
easily.
go to the Zervis school, you can see yourselves what's
Exactly.
going
There we
on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, had you finished? You had a couple questions you said.
Marijuana related meetings.
Well, it's a community
How will we be
meeting.
notified?
So we can follow the same notice protocol. What we did is we did do a 7-day notice in the tab. We would flyer 300, or we would mail to 300 feet of our abutters. That's
If-
how people got mailings.
I do get a mail
if you
and I live
haven't,
on Warren Road.
does anyone have an email
I get
list?
nothing.
Like a,
No
do you
I
have-
live on Warren Road.
Did you get a certified letter?
I do not. No. I live on
I'm on
11
Beacon Street.
Warren
Nope.
Road.
Are you within 300 feet from the facility?
No.
I'm next to the
That's why.
cemetery.
That's why.
But
So
it
if someone
doesn't
wants to
matter.
gather an
It's so
email list,
close
we can
enough.
certainly email it out, and I'm sure you have friends and neighbors that you can email it to, and we'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's not much within 300 feet
Well,
for
look,
you to
how about
print it
this?
out.
How about I circulate a
Thank you.
sign-in sheet right here, and anyone who puts that on our email, we will notify you when our next meeting is.
Half the room left for sure.
All right, but you can tell the other half of the room.
Ma'am, had you finished? What was it? Ma'am? I guess you has.
There's enough
Sir,
sign-up sheets.
Okay.
Actually, yes, where do you guys all live?
I live
East Boston.
Newtonville.
Hyde Park, and I stood in front of my mother's St. Anne's CYO auditorium audience, and I had the same conversation with the facility in Hyde Park that it was cited for a client.
Now, do any of the managing
dispensary in Hyde Park?
I'm sorry?
do any of the managing members and yourself,
being
anybody up
permitted.
there except the
It's
engineer,
not up and
will
running
be
yet,
on
but
the
there's two
premises?
that are applying.
Will be on the premises?
Hasn't been approved.
Yes.
They're both going through the process. None have been selected.
Not just employees, but will any
Yeah.
of you be there at the
Yes,
facility?
yes, definitely.
You will be.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'll
all
see,
the
because I
time.
live in back of that, where you're right in back, in the apartment building in back.
Yeah.
I know it, and it's very close. I'm very concerned about, we have parking spaces also,
Yes, so,
which will be used.
we met, I've been meeting
Is there any
with
questions
Dante
that we haven't heard on
Picasso,
traffic or
who's
parking or anything? Yes, sir.
your, guy, and we've been talking.
Are you guys planning to take online orders? Because the story of the Brooklyn facility is that they get so many orders that they cannot even fulfill them overnight. And all the people who do the online orders, they pick them up at the same time.
Yeah, we would have to schedule those.
Oh, but that's
So
terrible
you're
to
planning
sleep
to
for
take
the
them?
people that live in the back.
Yeah.
You've got it, then you've got it like all agree with us, so
Yeah.
it's to Dante.
Okay, folks, we'll do another meeting. We would love to meet with you. This was a lot of fun. We're going to do our best to get in touch with you. If you wait and sign this
So they're
little
open
sign-in
to the
sheet. I will personally have
Yes.
you emailed.
Yes.
No one signed up yet, but maybe you'll start.
So, but we're happy to work with, like, the people who live in the building.
Yes.
Like, preferences.
Are we adjourned?
There'll be a real
That's so artificial, you know, I mean, it's cosmetic, it's not proper. Yeah, how about, I heard that, they said.
Very, very low. Excuse me. Sorry. John.